Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the Twins Daily Post-Game Pint. This is Nick Nelson from Twins Daily, and we're excited to talk about another Twins victory here. Just a couple things before we dive in. To let you know, anyone who's attending, you're welcome and encouraged to join the discussion. There's a few ways you can do that. There's a Q&A section where you can enter a question. We'll see it. We'll answer it. There's also a chat. We can see what you're saying there. So feel free to share any thoughts, anything you want to contribute. And if anyone's feeling brave, wants to join in some way, we can even we can unmute you and bring you in and have you chat as well. So would love to get anyone involved. And I'm pretty excited to have a couple of great Twins Daily writers here with me tonight to chat about the game. So let's get some introductions to them, and then we'll dive in. With us tonight, we've got Rena, a.k.a. Renabanena, one of our great writers from Twins Daily. How you doing tonight, Rena? Are you indulging in a beverage here on this fine Saturday evening? And if so, what do you got?
Funny story about that. So I was on the post-game pint last night where I had half of a Truly, and I found myself at 1 a.m. still sitting on the couch eating hot Cheetos. So tonight I am having a glass of water in my Twins Daily cup.
Very nice. Water. Bonus points on the winter meltdown glass there for sure. Very nice. Yes, water. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah, we've also got Mr. Matt Trueblood with us, a great writer at Twins Daily. Also, Baseball Prospectus fame and a lot of other places you can find his writing. Matt, how you doing tonight? You having a beer over there, my man?
I am. Yeah. I guess it's a Leinenkugel's Honey Weiss. So it's basic, but it's tasty.
You can't go wrong. That's pretty a local beer, relatively speaking. That's Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. There, not too far.
Yeah, it counts.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the game. It was a good one. I'm just gonna pop up the screen share here, and we can look at the Baseball Savant game feed. Take a look at some of the stats and breakdowns here. Twins improved to 6-2, defeating the Indians 3-0 at Target Field. As you can see here, the Cleveland offense did not do much. 2 hits, Francisco Lindor and Bradley Zimmer with the only hits for Cleveland in a shutout. Carlos Carrasco pitched pretty decently, I thought. Gave up 3 homers, though, 3 solo homers to the Bomba squad, and that hurt him. The Twins didn't do a lot of damage outside of those home runs, but obviously they made the hits count. And Kenta Maeda, of course, the story of the game, a brilliant outing. 6 shutout innings, allowed 1 hit, a questionable hit at that, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. He had it working, 83 pitches. I'm sure if it was later in the season or any kind of standard season, he probably would have gone a little longer. Bullpen did its thing, another shutout effort, and another shutout for the Twins. Take a look at the hardest hit balls of the game here. I don't think it'll surprise anyone that they were the 2 Miguel Sano laser beam rockets. For the solo homers. He finally got it revved up tonight after a little bit of a cold start. Those things were hit at almost exactly the same speed and hit to different parts of the ballpark, but pretty similar trajectories there, pretty similar looking hits. So what do we think? What stood out to us about this game? Matt, we'll start with you. What's your big takeaway from tonight's ball game?
I think it's Maeda. There are obviously a couple of them, and we should talk a lot more about Sano, but I'm blown away by what the Twins have been able to do, what Maeda's been willing and able to do, working with Wes Johnson in just a couple of starts where, we already knew that he was great at inducing weak contact. He had swing and miss stuff. But in the past, he's leaned really heavily on 2 pitches to each handedness of batter. To righties, it's slider, fastball. To lefties, it's changeup, fastball. In his last start against the Sox, and especially tonight, I saw him using the slider a lot against lefties, getting in on their hands with it, and then throwing it to the back foot for swings and misses, and then going changeup right on right against a lot of the big righties who were coming out of their shoes at it. If he can keep doing that, then his past issues of not being able to go a third time through the order very effectively might be gone, and on, like you said, later in the season when they might need him to stretch beyond 6 innings when he's cruising like that, I have more confidence he'll be able to do it and not run into trouble that third time through the order, because now he's really got 3 pitches for any type of hitter who comes to the plate.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think the big question with any starting pitcher, and especially maybe a guy who's starter reliever hybrid in the same class as Maeda is, do they have enough pitches, right, to get through the lineup a few times and give batters enough different looks? And I think Roy Smalley was talking about during the broadcast tonight too, where it's like when you've got three or four pitches and another one in your back pocket that you can throw for a strike at any time, they were completely off balance. They were swinging out of their shoes. They had some really bad swings on pitches that ended up pretty far out of the zone. Maeda just had it going, and that's 2 straight starts now. He's looked like everything that was promised, and a huge addition to this starting rotation. Rena, what stood out to you most about the game tonight?
I'd say 2 things stood out the most, and I'll kind of stray a little bit away from Matt just so we don't have repetitive conversations. But the first is, this almost felt like the reverse of the game 2 nights ago with Shane Bieber, obviously to a less exaggerated extent. I mean, like you mentioned, Nick, the Indians, Cleveland was swinging at pitches that were completely out of the zone. And at times, Maeda made them look a little bit silly out there. And he didn't have the same number of strikeouts, which is expected, but we completely shut Cleveland out. And there wasn't a single point in the game where it felt like Maeda was losing control. He was always the head. And another thing that I had noticed was Taylor Rogers was used consecutively tonight. I mean, granted, he only did throw 5 pitches last night, which is essentially an extended warm-up. But I know last season he's had issues where on the second night, he gives up the 3-4 runs, the home runs. And tonight, Rogers looked just as consistent and solid as he did the night before, which is a big improvement for him. And clearly Rocco Baldelli sees that and is, confident enough in him to start him a second night in a row. So good stuff all around.
Yeah, so this was, correct me if I'm wrong, this was Rogers' 3rd night in a row pitching, right?
3rd out of 4.
3rd out of 4. Okay. So he did have one off in between there. But yeah, so I mean, he didn't pitch at all in the first 4 games of the season, right? And then now he's getting the opportunity to be run out a little bit. And I think, he had some troubles last year on those second consecutive days, but it looks like he's real strong right now, and he's pitching so efficiently, just attacking the zone, keeping the pitch. There hasn't been a lot of stress for him, a lot more stress for the batters he's facing, I think, in these outings. Matthew in the chat here says, touching on what Nick said regarding pitch counts, with our bullpen, how much is Rocco allowing pitchers time to build up their arms versus just handing the game over to the bullpen once the lineups turn over for the 3rd time? That seemed to be a strategy last year as well. Is that something, Matt, that you kind of notice as well?
Yeah, so that's definitely, he was very proactive about that last year throughout the season, and I think we should expect it to continue. I do think he's being a little more careful right now, and they're going to continue to be, and they may just continue to be throughout the season because their pitching staff is so deep that they don't really need to push anybody beyond a limit, at least at this point. And I don't really foresee the situation in which they'd be asking a guy to go back out there when he's already at 103 pitches and maybe the middle of the opposing orders coming up. I just don't think that we're going to get to that point at all in 2020. The rest of the league is seeing a whole lot of pitcher injuries, and the Twins are probably working hard to try and not join those ranks. So I think it's more about strategy, but also in this season and with this pitching staff, they may just let everybody kind of act as though they're only 80% stretched out because they can afford to.
Yeah. Rena, do you think it's the right call to take air on the side of the caution here with the starting pitchers and let that bullpen do its thing? Obviously, it's pretty hard to argue with the results so far.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see it even now, especially with teams like the Red Sox and the Yankees. And like Matt said, they're starting to see these pitcher injuries, and not just in their starters, but in the bullpen. And why not, find that perfect balance where you're not forcing a pitcher to go 102, 103 pitches. And there's still guys in the bullpen that we're not seeing very often, even though we're still erring on the side of caution with our starters. So agreed on all fronts.
Yep. It's hard to disagree with any of the decision making so far. The Twins are playing really well, and they're winning these games pretty handily without really being challenged. First of all, here I realized I forgot to mention the beer that I'm drinking here. It is a False Pattern from Modest, a great local brewery downtown near Target Field. We like it a lot, and it is it's very nice. So let's take a step back and take a look at the series. We've played 3 games against Cleveland now. Twins are up 2-1 in the series. To my eye, the thing that's really struck me about this series, and it's kind of what I expected, but almost to a greater extreme. The Cleveland lineup is just they've scored 3 runs in 27 innings against the Twins, and the only guys that have crossed the plate are Lindor and Ramirez, which are basically truly the only scary guys in their lineup. I mean, Carlos Santana is very good, but those are the guys you're afraid of, you know. So I think this is played pretty much exactly like the Twins would want it to and like Cleveland would not want it to. I mean, the Twins pitchers are looking really good, and the Indians just have not been able to mount any kind of threats. They can't get rallies going, and they're struggling with, no one outside of their 2 or 3 hitters is really a threat. Rena, what do you think? How are you sizing up the Indians so far?
Yeah, I would definitely tend to agree with that. I mean, just to add one more person to that pretty slim list is Cesar Hernandez. I mean, occasionally he'll get a hit here or there, but it seems like you said, occasionally Lindor will get a hit because he's Francisco Lindor, and they just can't string enough hits together to make that big of a rally. And especially as you get more and more into the game, you're not seeing any differences, which is something that you weren't seeing quite as often, I think, last season when you did see those late inning rallies from the Cleveland Indians. They're just missing some sort of a spark, but maybe it's just their offense.
Yeah. As a reminder to everyone that's here, the attendees, you're more than welcome to participate in the conversation. There's a Q&A panel where you can ask a question. We'll actively answer it on the air. There's a chat. You can mention anything you want. I see Jerry Gale mentioned that his 8-year-old grandson's team won and will play for 3rd place tomorrow. The Minnesota Loons won in the semifinals. The Twins are up 2-1 on the Indians here in the series, so it's all good over there. And he says he's drinking Bombay gin on ice, and it's damn good. So, all right, we're glad to have you with us, Jerry. Thank you very much. And everyone else is very welcome to share their thoughts on the game. Matt, what do you think? What are you thinking about Cleveland so far? They've come up pretty empty in this series so far, although their pitching, of course, has looked pretty solid.
Right. Well, I mean, they're a team built around pitching and built around Ramirez and Lindor. I think I like their lineup and the variability of it, sort of the modularity of it, maybe a little more than you do. I like some of the adjustments that Bradley Zimmer has made at the plate, and I think even though the Twins have contained him really well early in the season, just both in results against the White Sox in their last series especially, and in just looking at him, the way he's swinging, I think he's primed to take a step forward. That's going to help them quite a bit. If and when they get Roberto Perez back at catcher, that's more of a stick than they can get out of Sandy Leon, or I think it's Bo Taylor's their other catcher right now. So I think they're better than they've shown in this series. Part of it is the Twins pitching has been phenomenal, and they've had a really good game plan for Cleveland. But we knew they were a little bit thin. We knew they were maybe a bat short and intentionally left it that way. Chose to prioritize defense at some spots, chose to not make the extra addition in order to save money at other spots. So this is kind of an as expected. I do think they're better than what we've seen these 3 games, but a lot of that is just because the Twins are so good, and that's going to continue to be true in all their future meetings too. So it's encouraging.
Definitely. Agreed on that one. The Twins rotation, I felt coming into the year like it was going to surprise some people. I think it was MLB did the power rankings of the starting rotations, and they didn't have the Twins in the top 10. I thought that was a little ridiculous. And they've lived up to it so far. They have come through in flying colors. Jose Barrios gave up 5 earned runs in 4 innings on opening day. Since then, the Twins rotation has given up 7 earned runs in 45 innings. That's a 1.40 ERA. Pretty incredible stuff, especially when you consider that the bullpen, I think, has like a 0.4 something ERA outside of those Littell and Smeltzer meltdowns. The pitching staff has been unbelievable so far. Is this for real? To what extent do we think that this is sustainable? Obviously, they haven't faced a great offense thus far, although they're really not going to face a lot of great offenses this year. Matt, what do you think? Can they continue to stay anywhere near this level pitching-wise?
Well, can they sustain a 1.4 ERA from their rotation? No. But are they a top echelon overall pitching staff? I think absolutely. I think any time that a team is more about their depth than about their star power in a particular facet, that facet's going to be underrated by media and by people who are looking at them from the outside, who aren't spending a lot of time watching them from day to day, we can see that the Twins not only have, this every day they're sending out a solid starter, but even if a reliever is down, even if tomorrow Taylor Rogers isn't available because they don't want to make it 4 out of 5 for him, there are 3 or 4 guys you're comfortable giving the ball to in the 9th inning if it comes to that. We can see that there really isn't a day when they're sending out a starter and you're going, I'm not sure about this guy. That's where the Twins' strength is. And because they've got such an overabundance of that, even if there is an injury here or a suspension there, they have been able to weather it ever since the start of last year, and they're going to be able to continue to weather it as far as I can foresee throughout this season, because there's always another guy with something really interesting going for him and a coaching staff and a support structure that is going to draw the best out of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it, right? We haven't seen Matt Whistler for a little while now. He pitched on consecutive days early in the season, and he looked amazing. I mean, he was just missing bats constantly with that slider, basically showing exactly what the Twins saw in him, and he is such a ancillary piece on this bullpen. You look at a guy like Lewis Thorpe who comes out, and he's throwing well in an 8th inning appearance here and there. They got great depth. Reno, what do you think? You look at these arms, what's hitting you? I mean, this has just been an incredible performance. What do they need to do to continue to shut down opposing lineups?
Yeah, definitely. I think that because we don't have a name like Garrett Cole, Clayton Kershaw, Shane Bieber in our lineup, it's very often overlooked. And I think a good example of that is I've been telling a lot of friends to pick up Randy Dobnik in their fantasy leagues, and he's been picking up points, but no one knows about him. No one knows about our depth because our lineup isn't, clouded by this large name that brings it to the media's attention. And I think that things like depth and consistency are things that you can't really quantify. And I think that moving forward, if we can continue with some sort of consistency, I mean, we don't need every night to be 0 runs, 14 strikeouts, Shane Bieber style. If we can keep the consistency that, for example, Maeda and Hill had shown previously in Los Angeles, kind of keeping it to a couple runs, 5, 6, 7 strikeouts per night, we can make a really deep run with that. And I think that just keeping the train rolling will be the Twins' key for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that's a great call. I mean, and of course it's staying healthy, but I mean, they have a lot of depth, to take an injury or two. And to your point, they don't have any one player that they're so dependent on. I mean, I think if Garrett Cole went down for the Yankees, it'd be a huge disruption for them. The Twins, if they lost Barrios, it would hurt. But I mean, so far he's basically been their worst starter. So, there's that.
Well,
we got Mr. Bonus has joined us here, popping in. Hello, John. How you doing, man?
Apparently, I just get put right in as a panelist. I did not know that. I was just going to listen in for a while. Sorry, guys.
You have no choice. Yeah, you are the
accidentally big time. Yeah.
Whoops.
Sorry about that.
No worries. All right, so let's. We got a few questions here in the Q&A. Let's cover a few of these. What was the difference for Sano tonight? Paul asks. Obviously had 2 home runs at first of his 2 at-bats. It's been a huge struggle for him up to this point, and he really connected with those pitches. Matt, what do you think made the difference for Sano and helped him turn the corner tonight?
Well, what we need is for Parker Hageman to accidentally jump in as a panelist here, because he did a thread on Twitter about Sano. I think it was yesterday. My days are blurring together lately. But
everyone's are.
What he diagnosed is exactly what was wrong with Sano and exactly what he fixed tonight. He wasn't getting his swing started early enough. And that can happen for a large number of reasons. The trigger in every player's swing is a little bit different. But any great power hitter, especially a pull power hitter, which is what Sano really is at his core, they've got to have that trigger working and get started on time. And he was doing it. You could just see the difference. It was there. That's why he was able to get out around it. And, he almost didn't keep the second homer fair because it was a hanging slider, but he was getting started on time. He wasn't having to rush his hands through the zone. Everything moved the way it was supposed to because he was on time, just getting started in sync with Carrasco, delivering the ball.
Yep. Well said. And I think the big test will be, I mean, I think both pitches tonight were breaking balls that hung a little bit. The big test will be if he can turn around on a hard fastball, right? And then once he's able to turn on one of those, we're going to be feeling pretty good about where he's at. EJ asks, do you think Rocco would use Rogers in a save situation tomorrow, given the importance of taking 3 versus 4 against Cleveland? If not, who slides in? Would it be Romo, Stashak, someone else? Rena, what do you think? Who do you think that they would go to Rogers for a 4th time in 5 days? It seems kind of unlikely to me. And if not, who would you go to?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with you on this one. I don't think they're going to bring out Rogers again. We know that he can only appear a certain number of times per week. He has to, disappear off the grid for a little while. But I would say that he would probably bring in Romo, because we've seen Romo in the 9th inning this year. And, he's that veteran. I think it's raining. Sorry if you can hear that.
Can't hear it.
Perfect. But yeah, Romo's the veteran in the bullpen. He's gotten us saves. And, if it's a really close game, knock on wood, I don't think it will be. I still think Romo's the guy you go to.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to argue with that experience, right? Is he a 2-time, 3-time World Series champion? I mean, the guy is nails. And I guess if it was a super close, tight situation kind of game, I would maybe go to Duffy because I think he is their best reliever probably. I would maybe even put him ahead of Rogers. But again, it's one of those things where it's like hard to go wrong. I mean, everyone's pitching extremely well, and now they've got guys that are kind of experienced in those big spots. So I don't think anyone's going to wilt. Mike Link asks, will the Twins go to a 6-man rotation and keep Dobnak? That's a good question. When Odorizzi comes back, how do you justify demoting Dobnak from the rotation? I mean, he looks unbelievable. One stat that I looked up tonight that I think is kind of interesting, he has the 2nd highest ground ball rate of all pitchers in the major leagues, all starting pitchers in the major leagues so far. Obviously, it's just 2 starts, but considering what he did last year, I don't really think it's misleading. 68% ground ball rate, which is ridiculous. Rena, what do you think? I mean, are they going to be able to demote Dobnak when Odorizzi comes back? It's a nice problem to have here, but it is going to be something that they're going to confront here if Odorizzi is back maybe next week, as they're hoping.
I think that Dobnak will eventually take on a role that's pretty similar to what Maeda did back when he was in Los Angeles, where he kind of played both fiddles. He started a couple games here and there, and he was their primary, very long reliever. And I know that the Twins are still kind of trying to limit Rich Hill, keeping him to 3-4 innings, depending on his pitch count. And I can see Dobnak taking over the rest of the game, or, coming into long relief if a pitcher gives up a lot of runs in the 1st or 2nd inning. And so he's got that flexibility. He's proven himself as a starter. He's come in the 4th, 5th inning last year, and he can essentially be their utility man moving forward. But I don't think the Twins will move to a 6-man rotation.
Yeah, it's a little hard in the shortened season. I mean, then you're also kind of depriving these starting pitchers of starts that they deserve to get. I mean, these guys are only going to get 12 starts all season if you stick with a 5-man rotation. Is it fair, or is it even the right thing to do to take away a start from Barrios or Maeda? I don't know. Probably not. Matt, what do you think? I mean, they're going to have to, I guess, knock Dobnak down into that utility sort of Swiss Army role?
Yeah, I think probably so. I mean, there is sort of a distorted financial incentive where both Hill and Maeda, cutting 1 or 2 extra starts out of their schedule for the whole season would save the Twins some money. And they keep everyone's arms fresher for what's already going to be an expanded playoffs, however small that expansion is, So they have some good reasons to consider going to a 6-man rotation, in addition to just none of these guys really deserving to be demoted. But I think ultimately Dobnak's a great guy to have available in relief for multiple innings because of the particular skill set he brings. It doesn't exactly match any of the 5 guys you'd be leaving in the rotation. So he can be an effective sort of change of pace off of really any of them, but especially any other than Barrios, who he's probably not going to be piggybacking with anyway. So I think that's still probably the best move, although there's a decent argument for going to the six-man staff.
John, since we got you here, what would you do? What would you do when Jake Odorizzi comes back?
Well, you got to have Odorizzi back in the rotation. You've got 18 million reasons to have him back in the rotation, right? Or 6 million probably this year with the slightly shortened season. I will just say this about as high as we can be about Dobnik and as high as we can be about Maeda tonight, I spent a fair amount of the game listening to the Cleveland broadcast, and from their standpoint, Cleveland's offense is just absolutely struggling, and it started before they started facing Twins pitching, right? They also got shut out. Basically, they did get shut out the game just before versus Plesac. They only scored, I don't know, 9 runs or something the entire series versus the White Sox. And that was not versus, they were not facing Giolito and Keuchel in that series. They were, they did in the last game, but they didn't get to face Keuchel, and they were kind of facing the back end of a beat up White Sox team. Their feeling is Cleveland's offense is just really, really struggling right now. Everybody's trying to pull everything. The only person who's hitting it all right now is Ramirez. And so, listen, I'm excited and I'm happy for Dobnik. I don't know. I think we got to also take a look at it from the other side, which is the Twins have also run into a very cold offense here. Now they're helping them keep cold. You could take away that one pitch to Barrios, and they would have scored 1 run over these last 3. The one Barrios pitch to Lindor, they would have scored 1 run over those 3 games. But they're also, Cleveland's lineup is seemingly helping the Twins pitching look pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. Although, as we discussed earlier, they're not going to face a ton of great offenses this year. But yeah, as we mentioned, they did not have anyone other than, or have not had anyone other than Lindor and Ramirez score a run in this series yet. So that's pretty damning, I think. We have a question from an anonymous attendee, which I would like to focus on, and maybe this will probably be one of the last things we cover here because we're rolling on. But I think it's a good question. They say, what will it take for Garver to get going this year? Now I'm going to share my screen here and pull up his Mitch Garver's. Hold on a second. I'm going to pull up his StatCast numbers for this year. They are not real pretty. Let's see here. 1 second. Yeah, there we go. Hold on. He has been struggling. All right, here we go. So as you can see, the blue and the dark blue here are not good signs. His expected batting average, his expected slugging percentage, his K percentage, his expected OBA, they are all at literally the lowest possible percentile in the major leagues. Hard hit percentage, exit velocity, he's striking out, he's not making contact. Even the framing, I'm sure this is too small of a sample to really be meaningful, but even framing, which was sort of his bread and butter defensively last year, that big improvement, is not shining very well. I'm tempted to just say it's a small sample, and he's just kind of trying to get going. But it is striking, those numbers. What do you think, Matt? What do you make of this?
Yeah, I think we're still in this point where there are going to be hitters struggling for all kinds of different reasons, having to do with the shutdown and then the ramp back up and the rhythm that you have to find. And because Garver takes an especially, I don't even know if it's a complicated approach, but it's an approach where a number of things have to work together. He has to be locked in, seeing the ball well, waiting for his pitch, and then not missing his pitch, because his pitch is really something in a pretty small hitting zone. He's not a bad ball hitter. He's not a guy who can use the whole field if he's fooled, still hold something back and get good wood on it. He's got a grooved swing, and he wants to get what he's guessing and hit it hard. If you're a hitter like that and you just get going a little bit in the wrong direction, it can lead into a slump. Now, he managed to stay out of that or break out of that really quickly every time it started to go sour last year. That was one of the miracles of his season. But just given sort of the wrong-footed start that everyone's having in terms of the rhythm of this season, it's not surprising to me that he'd be a hitter who is scuffling, especially out of the gate. The bad news attached to that is it may just be that way for a lot of the season, where he's struggling to make all of those tumblers line up in the right order so that he can be the kind of hitter we saw in 2019.
Yeah. Rena, what do you think? Are you seeing anything that concerns you, or do you feel like he's going to get through this and get back to, I mean, probably not the same hitter he was last year because that was just on another level, but get back up to that point where he's producing as one of the top right-handed hitters in this lineup?
Yeah, so with regards to Mitch Garver, another name comes to mind who is kind of going through the same thing right now, and that's Christian Yelich in the worst slump of his entire life. I mean, he's 1 for 25, 26, something like that. And I'm sure that if you pulled up his page, it would be pretty similar to Mitch Garver. And so I don't want to repeat anything that's been said so far, but essentially to summarize, agree that he will probably pull himself out of the slump eventually, maybe not to the degree that he was at last year, but I mean, we're only a couple games in and it's a weird season. I don't think as of right now, there is any major cause for concern, unless you're also, again, concerned for Christian Yelich.
Yeah, that's a good point. Here, I'm going to bring up Mr. Yelich's page here to prove your point. As we can see, pretty brutal. A lot of blue, a lot of dark blue, and that kind of says it all. You know, if Christian Yelich can get off to this kind of bad start in this type of sample size, then anyone can, and probably not anything to get too worried about, but not a lot of time to get going. That's kind of the thing. And, you know, Alex Avila is a pretty good backup and nice to have in there against right-handers. So we'll see how much the playing time allotment shifts, if at all. Let's cover a few more things here, and then we'll sign off and set up tomorrow's series finale. Righty asks, how many home runs will Sano need to hit to justify the astronomical number of Ks he will have? He struck out an astronomical amount last year and hit 34 home runs, so I'm not really that worried about it personally. Are either of you guys?
No, I mean, strikeouts are a poor indicator of whether or not Miguel Sano is doing what he wants to do. He strikes out a lot when he's going really well, and he just strikes out even more when he's going really poorly. I guess the question was right in the first place, how many homers he hits. That's kind of measuring, right? Whether he's making hard contact a couple of times per game, that tells you whether Miguel Sano is doing what he wants to do. He's going to swing and miss a ton. That's who he is. So he's always been, and it's definitely not going to change. So don't worry about the strikeouts. Just worry about if it starts to look like he's striking out because he doesn't know what's coming up there and he doesn't know how to catch up to it.
Right. I think a big part of it is when he has those slumps, he strikes out and it looks so ugly that it hits people, you know. But, I mean, the guy swings hard, swings out of his socks, and that's why he hits absolute monster home runs and 111-mile-per-hour bullets twice in a game that go over the fence. Martin asks if Bailey struggles and Dobnak doesn't. Would they still demote Dobnak? How committed are they to Bailey? Seems pretty hypothetical after the way Bailey pitched earlier this week, but I guess that's a good segue because Homer Bailey will be starting tomorrow in the series finale against Adam Savali of the Indians. So Twins will be looking for a series win. If they can get it, it's going to put them in pretty dang good shape. They'll be 7-2 here in the early season. They'll have a 3-1 series victory over their chief rivals in the division. Rena, how are you feeling about tomorrow's game? What do you want to see, and what do you think the Twins need to do to close this thing out and call this series a big success?
Yeah, so I'm kind of with you. I'm not ready to start thinking about Bailey struggling right now. And with him being on such a short contract, I don't see him getting demoted right off the bat unless he's just absolutely getting crushed game after game, which I don't think is realistic at the moment. But I think that just to call tomorrow a victory, we don't need to shut out Cleveland again one more time. I think that a solid victory that doesn't result in a tight save situation is pretty much the most ideal way that we can close out the series. I mean, you know, you pray for the best, expect the worst, but with that said, I still don't really see Bailey necessarily getting demoted just from 2 starts.
Yeah, I don't think that Bailey is going to have a start that's on par necessarily with the last ones we saw from Maeda and Rich Hill. It's a lot to ask, and I think this Cleveland offense is probably going to start to wake up. They're not going to slump forever. So I would expect to see some more runs scored tomorrow. But I also think the Twins are going to wake up a little bit too. I mean, as we mentioned, they didn't do much tonight outside of those 3 solo homers. And Savali is the worst pitcher they've seen thus far in the series. Worse is relative because he's still pretty good. But, you know, I think it'll look worse for Bailey, I guess, if he gets beat up a little tomorrow, just because of the way we've seen the Twins manhandle this offense so far. But I'm accepting of the fact that he'll probably run into some trouble and not have quite as smooth of sailing. But the Twins have a great offense that they're going to be unleashing. I mean, the elephant in the room here, I guess, is that they've scored 7 runs in the series in 3 games, and they're 2-1, which is a pretty good sign. Matt, what are your thoughts on tomorrow's game? What are you looking for? And what do the Twins got to do to come away with the series victory?
Well, they got, like you mentioned, all 3 runs tonight were solo homers, and specifically they were on sliders that Carrasco left up. That's not what scoring on Savali looks like. He is a command guy, doesn't have the stuff. I mean, really, if he's throwing anywhere above 91, it's a pretty good day for him. He can touch higher, but mostly he's going to show good command with multiple pitches to all quadrants. Scoring on him means stringing a few hits together and probably not a few home runs. So the Twins are going to have to, bring that lineup that created a lot of magic last year, where it wasn't just about bombas. It was also, there were times when they were grinding out an at bat, and even if the pitcher didn't give in and walk them, they'd wrap a single the other way. They'd put one in the gap. It's going to take a rally or 2 like that tomorrow to put the numbers on the board that they want to against Savali.
Yeah, that's a great point. They're going to be tested to show that they can do what they haven't necessarily so far. I think the offense has looked good for the most part, especially in that early series, but they've got to start to show they can get some rallies going, draw some walks, string some hits together, and not just rely on the long ball. Because I think we all can agree that, in a shortened season, you really have to kind of show a little more offensive dimension in order to succeed. But the Twins have obviously been very successful so far, now 6-2 on the season, looking to get a series victory over Cleveland tomorrow afternoon. I believe that's a 1:00 start. Bailey against Savali, as we mentioned. Before we sign off, any final thoughts on tonight's game or the series or what you're looking ahead to here? We'll start with you, Matt.
Nothing but excitement. I mean, seeing Sano make the adjustment, the timing adjustment, and seeing Maeda continue to add depth to his repertoire against lefties and against righties, there's almost nothing but positives coming out of this game, so they have a lot to carry forward.
Couldn't agree more. Rena, what are your final thoughts for the evening?
So looking through the comments, it looks like Homer Bailey got pushed tomorrow.
Oh.
Tyler Clippard will actually be the opener. So
Okay.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Rocco Baldelli plays that one and how he utilizes the bullpen. But kind of my final thoughts were, it was pretty briefly discussed yesterday and it still applies today, but I'd like to see the Twins score from the Cleveland bullpen. We haven't really seen these back end runs, and they haven't capitalized on Cleveland's relatively weak bullpen versus their super strong, dominant starting rotation. And so even if Savali has the game of his life tomorrow, I'd like to see the Twins string together these runs and hits in the 7th, 8th, and 9th innings. Well, not 9th inning, hopefully.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you to the commenters, and I see Seth is in there sharing that as well, that Bailey has been pushed back. I don't know that we have a reason for that yet that is known, but that's interesting to see. One theory is that Bailey has been knocked out of the rotation to make room for Jake Odorizzi and keep Dobnak in there, as was discussed earlier, but that seems very unlikely. So I guess I wonder what will happen tomorrow. Clippard will open, and then presumably they'll go to Smeltzer, who's pretty built up and hasn't pitched for a while, and he'll have an opportunity to maybe shake off that last outing. So, John, do you have any thoughts you want to share here before we sign off on tonight's game, tomorrow's game, the series, or this news about Bailey getting pushed back?
Well, I think it's worth noting that Twins just went through one of their toughest stretches of the season. The next 3 weeks, other than 6 games versus Milwaukee, and I'm not sure how good they are given Yelich's struggles. Now Kane's going to be leaving, etc. Their next 3 weeks, up until they next play Cleveland, which is 3 weeks from tomorrow, are all versus Pittsburgh and Kansas City. They should have, if they get out tomorrow with a win and a 2.5 game lead in the Central, heading into that fairly soft 3-week series. A 3-week schedule and little break kind of before they next face Cleveland. They're going to be sitting in a real good position for this year.
Yeah, it's if they keep playing at this level, it's almost wild to think about what their record could look like at the end of that stretch.
Right.
We had someone ask in the last post-game Pint I was on if they could win 50 games, and by that time they might very well be on pace. All right, well, thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. Thanks to all who commented, asked questions. Of course, thank you to Matt and Rena. I hope you guys will join me in thanking our awesome panelists. Make sure to come by twinsdaily.com. They both write pretty regularly and create a lot of phenomenal stuff for us. If you happen to miss any of this, or for some sadistic reason you want to watch it again tomorrow, it's going to be on the Twins Daily YouTube page. You'll be able to find it on twinsdaily.com and on the Facebook page as well. It's very easily found. And our next post-game Pint will be, of course, after tomorrow afternoon's game, which should be an interesting one. Oh, well, not.
Nope,
No.
It'll be Monday. Sorry.
You know what? I'm glad you're here. Just prevent my spreading of fake news. Next one will be Monday, and so we'll probably talk a little bit about what happens tomorrow then. But otherwise, thank you everyone for checking in, and we will see you next time. Go Twins! All right. Thanks, everybody. Everyone enjoy the rest of your Saturday night.
You too. See ya.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Take care.